Hello students, and welcome back to class. In this video, we're going to study area problems and area formulas. Bruce has decided he's had enough of math. It's nap time for Bruce. Let's start by digging into the meaning of area. Suppose this is a rectangle that is 4 inches wide. Can you see that I could cut it into 4 strips? 1 strip, 2 strips, 3 strips, 4 strips. This rectangle is also 3 inches tall, which means I could cut it into 3 strips this way. 1 strip, 2 strips, 3 strips. How many little squares have I formed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We can say that the area of this rectangle is 12 little tiny square inches. The area is 12 square inches. Area means how many of these little squares does it take to fill up the inside of that rectangle. Of course, we know there's a shortcut for getting that 12. We don't have to draw that grid like that. We know the formula is area equals length times width. So the area is length times width. The length is 4, the width is 3. When we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12 of these little tiny square inches. Let's try some sample problems. Here's a nice rectangle with length and width, and the formula for how to find the area of a rectangle. So if my rectangle is 5 inches by 3 inches, here's how I would show my work. Area is length times width. Let's give me a place to plug in the length and the width. The length is 5. The width is 3, and when I multiply, that's 15. Now for an area problem, I should give the units. Since this problem was in inches, my area is in square inches. There's the way I want you to show your work. Give me the formula, the numbers, and the answer. Let's try it again. Here's another rectangle. Area equals length times width. The length is 20, the width is 55. The length is 20, the width is 55. On my calculator, 20 times 55 is 1,100. 1,100. This was in centimeters. It would take 1,100 little tiny square centimeters to fill up that rectangle. Triangles have a slightly different formula. Instead of length and width, we think of a triangle as having a base and a height. Do you see that the height and the base form a right angle, a 90-degree angle right there? That's how I know that that can be the height that goes with that base. In order to get the area of a triangle, we multiply the base and the height together, and then we divide by 2. Area is 1/2 base times height. Let's try example 1. Here's my base. Here's my height. I know it's the height because of that right angle there. Write down the formula. And then we'll plug in for base and we'll plug in for height. The base is 5.5. I'm going to write that as 5.5. The height is 7. Now on my calculator, I'll go 5.5 times 7 divide by 2. Let's try it. 5.5 times 7 divide by 2. 5.5 times 7 divided by 2. And my calculator gives me 19.25. This was in feet, so 19.25 square feet to fill up that triangle. Let's try example 2. It's a triangle, so area is 1/2 base times height. Is that the base? There's no number. Well, remember, the base and the height have to form a right angle. Here's my right angle over here. If you like, you could turn this all the way around. Now that looks like the base and the height, as long as they form a right angle. As long as they form a right angle, the base doesn't really have to be on the bottom. You can just think of this as being tipped over. Area is 1/2 base times height. Let's let 6.2 be the base, and 11 is the height. On my calculator, I'll go 6.2 times 11 divided by 2. 6.2 times 11 divided by 2. And the area of this triangle is 34.1. This problem was in meters, so that's 34.1 square meters. A parallelogram is a geometric figure that has two sets of parallel lines. See how the top and the bottom are parallel? And also the right and the left are parallel? Now the angles do not have to be right angles. If they're not right angles, it's just a parallelogram. If they were right angles, then it's a special parallelogram called a rectangle. A parallelogram has a base and a height, and the formula for area is just base times height. Let's try number 1. It's a parallelogram because the bottom and top are parallel, the left and right are parallel. Area is base times height. The base is 9. Here's the height. It's 5 3/4. I'm going to write 5 3/4 as 5.75. So on my calculator, 9 times 5.75 is 51.75. This problem was in inches, so that's square inches. When you work your homework, show me the formula, plug in the numbers, give me the final answer. Now on number 2, it is still a parallelogram. Bottom and top parallel, right and left parallel. But the height, for the sake of convenience, has been shown over here. This 6.3 is showing how tall that parallelogram is. There's the base, there's the height. Area is base times height. 2.9 times 6.3. 2.9 times 6.3, 18.27. This problem was in meters. Area would be meters squared. Great. Now circles are kind of tricky. You have to know this distance from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. That's called the radius. If you know the radius of the circle, then the area is the radius times itself times pi. That's pi r squared. For pi, we'll always use 3.14. Sometimes books will tell you that you can also use 22/7. You can, but for our purposes, we'll always use 3.14. Let's try number 1. Area of a circle is pi r squared. I know the radius. So area is 3.14 times the radius squared. The radius is 7. Now when I do this on my calculator, I'll go 7 times 7 times 3.14. The 7 is squared. 7 times 7 times 3.14. Here we go. 7 times 7 times 3.14 is 153.86. That's square inches. Great. Let's try it again. Area is pi r squared. Now remember, r is radius. Radius only goes halfway across the circle. But this line here that is 9 yards long, that goes all the way across the circle. That's the diameter. I don't want the diameter. I want the radius. Well, to get the radius, I'll take the diameter of 9 and cut it in half. If it's 9 all the way across the circle, well, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. The radius from here to here would be 4.5 yards. Now I'm ready for my area problem. Area is pi r squared, where my radius I know is half of 9, that's 4.5. On my calculator, I'll go 4.5 times 4.5 times 3.14. Let's try it. Here's 4.5 times 4.5 times 3.14. It's a little more than 63. 63.585. This problem was in yards, so square yards. Lovely. Now the trapezoid has the most complicated formula. A trapezoid has one pair of parallel sides. See how the bottom and the top are parallel, but the left and the right certainly not parallel. This is considered the height that connects the two bases. The parallel sides we'll call base 1 and base 2. How do you get the area? I need the height. I need the sum of the two bases. I multiply and then divide by 2. 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases. Let's try number 1, where area is 1/2 height times the sum of the two bases. Let's plug in. I'll need to plug in a number for the height, and I'll need to add the two bases together. The height, that's the 6 centimeters. The two bases are the sides that are parallel to each other. That's the 9 and the 4. Let's add inside this set of parentheses. 9 plus 4 is 13. Now on a calculator, it's 6 times 13 divided by 2. Let's try it. 6 times 13 divided by 2 is 39. The area of that trapezoid is 39. This was in centimeters, so that is 39 square centimeters. Let's try another. Area is 1/2 height times the sum of the bases. Is that a base? Well, no. The bases have to be parallel to each other. See how these are parallel to each other? This trapezoid is sitting up on its end. It really should go this way. Now those look like the bases, parallel to each other. Let's plug in. Area is 1/2 height times the sum of the bases. My bases are the 14 and the 8. The height is the line that runs perpendicular between the two bases. Well, this 10 is perpendicular between the two bases. Next, let's add 14 and 8. 14 plus 8 is 22. For my final answer, we'll multiply 10 times 22, divide by 2. 10 times 22, divide by 2. I get 110. This problem was in inches. That's 110 square inches. Beautiful. This last example is a composite area problem. I'd like to find the area of this entire figure. What I notice is that it has a square top. A square top is like a rectangle. Let's think rectangle. The bottom of it, look at that. Bottom and top are parallel. Left and right are parallel. That's a parallelogram. Let's get the area of the rectangular top, get the area of the parallelogram bottom, add the two areas together, and that'll give me the area of the whole thing. How do you find the area of a rectangle? Rectangle is length times width. Parallelogram, base times height. Length times width, base times height. But on the rectangle, they haven't given me any numbers. I don't have the length and the width. Let's start with the parallelogram. For the parallelogram, do I know the base and the height? Certainly the base is 8. And the height is this 10. 8 times 10 is 80. I've got the parallelogram. The rectangle is a little trickier. Well, one thing that I know about a parallelogram is that the bottom is exactly the same length as the top. If this is 8, then this is 8. But what do we know about a square? On a square, all the sides are the same length. So if this is 8, then this is 8. But if this is 8, every side is 8. It's 8 centimeters there, and it's 8 centimeters there. Which means if I want the area of this top, length times width can be 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. The top square has an area of 64. The bottom parallelogram has an area of 80. If I put it all together, I'll add 64 plus 80. 64 plus 80 is 144. This problem was in centimeters. That's 144 square centimeters. All right, you've got all the formulas you need. Go work some homework problems, and I'll see you later on today.